This is the Why I Hate and Love Pickleball podcast. I'm Bill Wong. Today I'm going to be talking about heart or desire. This morning I was invited to be a guest on Racket Sports podcast, Curtis Reese. He was very kind to invite me to the DFW indoor pickleball facilities. They opened operations in January of this year. There were about 60 or 70 women who were doing drills, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. During the podcast with Curtis, he asked me a question about my book. It's a combination of melding your body, mind, and heart together so you're a better person. Today was a perfect example of the third characteristic, which was desire. There were 60 or 70 women who were doing drills early on a Friday morning to improve. They had desire. While I was watching them, they were doing footwork drills. They were catching the ball. They were moving. Then they moved on to dinks. And then I had to do part of the podcast. One thing that I did notice that I would have talked to them about is movement. One of the skills that you learn as a tennis player is to have a consistent contact point. If it's on my forehand, about 1.5 feet away from my shoulder. If it's on my backhand, the height between my upper thigh, shoulder. One of the things that I noticed the women weren't doing was moving their feet. I am a big advocate of the James Ignatowicz bounce. He is so lively with his feet and he's constantly moving. You can get away with poor footwork at the lower levels of pickleball. However, to get to a high level, you need to have very bouncy feet and then set so you can hit your balls. But you need to move your body to get to that consistent contact point and then set yourself. What I would have liked to have seen the women do was to move their feet, set, hit the ball. See where the ball's coming, move their feet, set, and hit the ball with a consistent stroke. And that is not easy. Later in the afternoon, I played with a young man who was on break from A&M. He has a lot of desire. This morning, he played at Chicken and Pickle from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Then he played with me from 12 o'clock to 1:30. And then he just texted me and said he's working on his serve because his serves aren't at a percentage that they should be. As I've said before, an acceptable service fault rate is 1 out of 11, which I think is about 7%. He was easily serving 2 or 3 times that level, so we worked on his serves. But before that, we worked on drops, we worked on dinks, we worked on resets, and then we did his serves. One of the things that he had to work on was getting a little bit more shape on his serves. His targeting was good. 8 times out of 10, you should be targeting a person's backhand, unless they prove to you their backhand is a stronger stroke. Most of the times, he was just pushing the ball a little bit forward and making the serve was a little bit off. I said, let the ball drop, pick it up, redrop. Also, I think he needed to have a little bit more shape. He used a semi-western grip, which we've talked about before, which is having your grip a little bit more rotation to the right-hand side, but he needed a little bit more shape. To have more shape, you can drop the ball lower, hit the ball in a slightly upward stroke so you have more rotations and spin on it. At the time, his serves were going long. He was probably targeting it a little bit too close to the baseline. I said, all right, let's pull it in maybe a foot or 2. His serves were much better. And then I just received a text that he's working on his serves as I'm doing this podcast. He had an incredible amount of desire, which I love. That's one of the things I do love about this sport. A lot of young people are not only soaking up the information, then going to the court and working. We were working on resets, and his resets were easily 100% better than the first reset we did to the last one we did, because he's young and he could learn very quickly, and he was just focusing on getting the ball over. That is one of the things I love about this sport. One last thing that I'm going to mention, Curtis asked me this question, which I had to think about. He asked me about forced errors versus unforced errors. He questioned me whether forced errors were more of a problem in pickleball. I had to think about it for a second, and I agreed with him at the higher levels of the sport. Professionals force you to make an error. They have the capability of making you do what you can't do well, putting a ball up high, and then they crush it. However, at lower levels, unforced errors are the issue, where you can't consistently get the ball over, whether it's a dink or a ground stroke, a serve, or a return. What we need to work on to have that consistent contact point, to move your feet, to have a very short stroke that's repeatable. 90% of the time, get the ball back and get it where you want it to be. As you get better, you're putting the ball where a person doesn't like it. You're forcing them to do things that they don't like to do, and you are doing things that you like to do. Most people, they like to hit a forehand. Most people don't like to hit a backhand. You want to hit to their backhand, and you want to hit toward their shins. The backhand, because of the construction of your body, you have to scooch back. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, Ben Johns, whenever he does a backhand, he takes 2 or 3 steps back so he can hit a backhand. We should also do that. We can copy and learn from the pros. As I said, forced errors at a very high level because they have the capability of hurting you. At a lower level, 3-5 to 4-0, it's unforced errors. Not hitting a ball into the net, not hitting a ball that's long, not hitting a ball that is long, and forcing a person to hit a ball high so you can put it away. Next week, I'll be a guest at Racket Sports. I may not do a podcast. I'll see if I have the time. This is Bill Wong. I will see you on the pickleball court.